With Pokemon Legends ZA now out, we have a lot that we have learned about the world of Pokemon and just kind of the lore to this beautiful, beautiful franchise. And I'm not just talking about things from the continuation of the story in X and Y, stuff in the Kalos region. I'm talking beyond that. This game has some really cool stuff from just all around the world of Pokemon. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, don't worry, this will not contain any in-game spoilers. While I'm sure that will involve some pretty heavy lore stuff, I currently, actually, at the time of recording, have not finished beating the game, so I won't be talking about anything that I don't want to know as I'm playing through it either. This is going to include some stuff that's up to rank C, but very minor spoilers from there. And nothing big, nothing that's going to ruin your experience. Welcome back to the post where we talk about all things Pokemon. Today we'll be talking about 5 really, really big things, in my opinion, of what we learned in Pokemon Legends ZA. Again, this is all going to be opinion-based, right? You might see some things that you think is cooler than these 5, but for me, these are really big. Let's start with number 1. Ingo made it home, guys. Ingo made it home. Let's celebrate. I'm so stoked about this. So, for those who don't remember, in Pokemon Legends Arceus, you meet all these different wardens, but while some of them do look similar to people we've met before, there's one who looks identical to someone we've met before, and that is Ingo. Yeah, it seems that the Battle Subway boss has been transported back in time into the days of Hisui, and he has very faint memory, like he seems to kind of remember a person who looks like him, referring to his brother Emmett, as well as referring to a Pokemon that could light his path or something to that effect, referring to his Chandelure. But ultimately, at the end of the game, Ingo doesn't really have much more of his memories, and he certainly didn't make it back home. However, in Pokemon Legends ZA, you can see a gallery for Legends Arceus for the days of Hisui, over in the Lumiose Museum. And one of these talks about a warden who ran a battleground. This is referring to Ingo. And it says that one day he simply just vanished after stating, "It is time for me to return," which does imply that Ingo did return from the days of Hisui. Not only this, but there is just some random NPC that as you run by, they've got like a little text dialogue above them that says, "Hey, the battle subway or the multi-battle subway," or something to that effect, is back up in the Unova region. Someone else says, "I'd like to take on Ingo and Emmett in the Unova region." Again, implying Ingo did make it back home. But maybe he doesn't have his memories from the days of Hisui. I don't know. I'm really excited for a potential Unova remake or a Unova Legends game, some kind of Unova game, just so we can see these brothers reunited and maybe even get some more to the story. Because how was Ingo able to just go, "Well, it's time for me to return"? It does say "it is said," so maybe it's not that's not exactly what happened. That just became legend. But I am really, really curious to speak to Ingo again. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is just the timeline of these games. It is stated several times that the ultimate weapon was fired 5 years ago for the second time. So this is obviously referring to the events of Pokemon X and Y, in which the ultimate weapon is indeed fired, and it's bad. But saying that these events were from 5 years ago does confirm that this game takes place 5 years after the events of X and Y. Legends ZA, X and Y, there's 5 years in between them. Not only this, but it also tells us that Pokemon Sword and Shield takes place within 5 years after X and Y, just because there is a trainer who refers to Leon as the former champion of the Galar region. So this means Leon has been dethroned, which is something that happens in the game Pokemon Sword and Shield. So that means that Pokemon Sword and Shield has to have taken place sometime between X and Y and Legends Arceus. This also is just really interesting because if you look, the Rotom phone in Legends ZA has 3 lenses on the camera, and then this is clearly a step up from Scarlet and Violet's that has 2 lenses, which is a step up from Sword and Shield's, which has 1 lens, if I remember correctly. And then the Rotom phone is clearly an expansion of the Rotom Pokedex, which we first see in Sun and Moon. So would that imply that between X and Y and Legends ZA, only a 5 years time, there has been Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, all of those events have taken place in 5 years. It very well could be possible. We do see Apple in the real world, which, you know, the Rotom phone's clearly like the Pokemon iPhone. We do see Apple release a new iPhone every single year, so it does kind of make sense to go, okay, well, if Sword and Shield on one lens, Scarlet and Violet 2, and then Legends EA 3, then I am imagining that with Legends EA, we have 1 year prior, so 4 years after X and Y, the events of Scarlet and Violet. 1 year prior to that was Sword and Shield, so 3 years after X and Y. 1 year prior to that would be, or maybe even 2 years prior to that, would be Sun and Moon, because, you know, it probably took some time to come from the Rotom Dex to the Rotom phone. But either way, all those games taking place within a 5 year span is pretty crazy. Big 5 years for Pokemon lore. I bet people in the Pokemon world thought the apocalypse was coming. Now, the next bit of information we don't really have as much to say on, but it's that Cybold left the Elite Four in the Kalos region. So, you know, Cybold was the Water-type Elite Four member in the Kalos Elite Four, and he also was a chef. And it says that he left the Elite Four, just a random NPC says Cybold left the Elite Four to polish his culinary skills. So we now know that Cybold is no longer an Elite Four member, and it kind of makes me wonder who maybe took Cybold's place, you know? When you couple this with the fact that in all the shots we've seen of Prism Tower, you know, where there isn't like a wall around it, you can see no gym logo, which implies that Clement's no longer the gym leader. So all this is really, really strange to me, and maybe there's answers that'll come after I get past rank C, but currently right now it's pretty interesting, and it makes me, I like to know these things, right? I want to know, okay, well, if Clement isn't the gym leader, there has to be 8 gyms, so who's the 8th gym leader? If Cybold is an Elite Four member, well, that's in the name, Elite Four, so who's the 4th Elite Four member, you know? Yeah, this stuff really, really interests me. Hopefully we get more information on this, maybe just hints or nods to it in the DLC for Legends EA Mega Dimension. Now, the next thing is that these new Megas are explained for why they're popping up in the game. As you probably already know, in fact, you definitely already know, it was revealed before the game was even out. Legends EA introduces us to many new Mega Evolutions, such as Dragonite, Malamar, Hawlucha, and the explanation for this is that these Pokemon did start appearing relatively recently, and they believe it is connected to the firing of the ultimate weapon back at the end of X and Y, which was kind of a theory that I had thought for a while, just because it made sense, right? Professor Sycamore hypothesized that the ultimate weapon firing 3,000 years ago is what led to the creation of many Megastones today, so it makes sense that a second firing of it could create more Megastones, of course, for new Pokemon. So yeah, this one just makes a ton of sense, but I do like that they just kind of explained it. Truthfully, Pokemon doesn't have to give us an explanation for new Mega Evolutions or new evolutions, right? They can just easily explain it as, okay, well, you didn't discover this Pokemon before, or this Mega Evolution before, because you didn't find the evolution method, or you didn't find the Mega Stone for this Pokemon, right? Like, hypothetically, a Mega Stone's like that big, right? A Mega Stone could be anywhere. It could be hidden in this room right now, and I just not know about it, right? But I like that they go above and beyond, and they say, no, we need an explanation for why this is. The ultimate weapon fired, that created, like, the first batch of Megastones, maybe. But then the second one created a few more, maybe even more than what we're seeing. It's only been 5 years. There's probably more out there to be discovered. And then lastly, we have an interesting detail about, and this is kind of where we get into the rank C stuff. There is a society called the Society of Battle Connoisseurs. These are like a bunch of elitists who are really wealthy and really love Pokemon battles. And they seem to be very, very wealthy, because they even were able to grab Leon for a guest speaker at one point. You don't get to see him in game, in case you're curious. They just mention, oh, we previously had Leon here to speak at our invitation. But this actually makes me think of some dialogue from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. There is an interesting thing where when you're talking to these trainers in the Blueberry Academy room, you know, kind of the new feature in the Indigo Disc DLC was you could bring in these characters and speak to them. You see a conversation between Gita and Larry, where Gita basically talks to Larry about how he is going to another region for a battle tournament amongst multiple people internationally. Now, my first thought on this was the Pokemon World Tournament from the Unova games. However, since we're in the Blueberry Academy and she's saying this, he's not going to another region. He's right here in the Unova region. The Blueberry Academy is in the Unova region, which is where the Pokemon World Tournament is. So that gives us one of two options. For one, the Pokemon World Tournament moves regions, which I actually think would make a lot of sense, right? Like, kind of like the Olympics changes countries every time, you know, there's a new Olympics event. I could see the World Tournament doing that. It is the World Tournament after all. Or, and this is what my new headcanon will be, is that this was all a hint at the Society of Battle Connoisseurs, and it was actually he's going to the Kalos region at their invitation. They are grabbing trainers from other places, you know. Like I said, they grabbed the former trainer Leon to give a speech at, you know, one of their meetings. So it makes sense that they would try to grab the guy who's not only a gym leader in the Paldea region, but is also an Elite Four member too. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Larry has an impressive resume. Makes sense that they would grab him. Now, I know that we said 5 things, but guess what? Your boy is bad at math, and he's also bad at reading because he completely glossed over this on his notes. There is a 6th thing, which you're not complaining. That's just more stuff for you, right? Another thing that I think is really, really cool from Legends EA, and this is the reveal that Volo might still be out there. Yeah, that's right. This is in Legends EA, and this actually isn't a plot spoiler. It's a little just random piece of dialogue or text. So basically, in the Lumiose Museum, in that Hisui section that I mentioned earlier, there is a outfit. It's the outfit of Volo that he wears when he fights you with Giratina in the post-game of Legends Arceus. And when you click on it, it says something to the effect of like, you know, this is what the ancient peoples of Sinnoh did during their rituals. And then there's a guy next to it who's like, I actually was told that the guy who wore this donated this to the collection himself. Now look, you could look at this as way back in the days of Hisui, they all were donated, but no. I'm thinking that this means this was donated to the Museum of Lumiose himself. I've had a theory, and I'll definitely like plug it. It'll be up at the top right now. You can look at it. But I've had a theory for a while now that Volo might actually be from the future and is a time traveler, and I think this gives credit to it. This mainly to briefly summarize that video. You should check out the full video for a more in detail explanation, but for a brief just summary of it, for one, it's weird that Cynthia is the only character to get 2 quote-unquote ancestors in Legends Arceus with Kogita and Volo. And then also there's a line of dialogue from Volo where he's like, oh, you know, I'll keep chasing down. He says something to the effect of like, no matter how many centuries it takes, which is a weird thing to say because centuries is, you know, not really something humans are known for living unless your name's AZ. So, the thought process here is either Volo is a time traveler and is not in fact a Cynthia ancestor, but a descendant who is from the far future and has traveled back to the days of Hisui in the events of Legends Arceus, which would also explain how he was able to get to where he got in Hisui, have Giratina, all this. He had the knowledge of everything that would happen, so of course he was able to kind of play that to his effect. Or what we're looking at is that Volo is actually immortal, and so he just knew he would live for centuries. But given that we don't have an explanation for why Volo would be immortal, like we know with AZ, it's from the blast of the ultimate weapon, that radiation. Ultimately, the one that resurrected Floette also gave him, you know, a much longer expanded life, basically immortality. So we don't know what did that to Volo, so I'm assuming it is the time travel theory. Now again, it could be that he donated it way back when, in the days when he was alive, but I really, check out that theory video, because I feel like there's a lot there, and I feel like this has added even more to it. I'm a big believer in this. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think that we've seen the last of Volo. I don't know when they have him saved, but I think we'll be seeing Volo again. But yeah, there you have it, guys. Those are 5 things that I picked up while I was kind of playing through this game that really, really interested me. If you've seen some other details that, you know, aren't the obvious ones, like I'm sure there'll be obvious in-game ones, but just kind of some smaller details that you've noticed throughout the game, let me know in the comments below. Truthfully, I had a different video planned for this week, but when I started seeing stuff about Ingo returning and all this, I was like, no, it's got to be this. I want to cover this. I want to get this out. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know anything you find in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that fun stuff. And until next time, I will see all of you later.